The warehouse facility occupied an entire city block on Chicago's South Side. The building was registered as a clothing distribution center, licensed and operating with apparent legitimacy for 3 years. Delivery trucks arrived daily. Workers came and went on regular shifts. Municipal inspections found nothing unusual. The business paid taxes, maintained insurance, and filed required documentation. From the outside, it was indistinguishable from hundreds of other wholesale operations throughout the city. Inside, concealed behind rows of legitimate inventory, a criminal enterprise was preparing to flood Chicago with synthetic opioids. 317 kilograms of fentanyl and carfentanil had been accumulated over 6 weeks, transported from clandestine labs in Mexico through a network of couriers and safe houses. The drugs were now staged for processing, cutting, and distribution into street-level markets across the metropolitan area. The operation was planned to launch 48 hours before Thanksgiving weekend. The timing was deliberate: high demand, increased social activity, emergency services stretched thin during holidays, maximum exposure, maximum profit. The distribution plan called for the synthetic opioids to be cut, packaged into individual doses, and delivered to 273 street-level dealers operating in 17 different neighborhoods across Chicago and surrounding suburbs. The scale was unprecedented. 317 kilograms of pure synthetic opioids would be diluted and repackaged into approximately 240,000 individual doses. Those doses would flood the market during a 4-day period when overdose risks already peaked due to holiday stress, increased substance use, and reduced access to support services. DEA agents had been investigating the warehouse operation for 22 weeks. The case began with intelligence from a confidential informant who reported unusual activity at the facility. The informant described security protocols that exceeded normal business practices and personnel who seemed more like guards than warehouse workers. Initial surveillance confirmed the concerns. Financial analysis revealed discrepancies between reported revenue and actual business activity. The warehouse moved less legitimate inventory than its size and staffing suggested. Cash deposits into associated bank accounts did not correlate with invoices or sales records. The numbers indicated money laundering operations running parallel to a front business. Phone intercepts captured coded conversations about shipment schedules, quality control, and distribution logistics. References to holiday inventory and customer projections used terminology inconsistent with clothing distribution. The language suggested drug trafficking operations concealed behind legitimate business facade. The human cost was already mounting. Chicago Emergency Medical Services responded to 632 synthetic opioid overdoses during the 6 weeks the drugs were being accumulated. 147 of those cases were fatal. The victims ranged from teenagers experimenting with substances to chronic users with years of addiction. The synthetic opioids circulating were killing people because their potency far exceeded traditional heroin. On the West Side, a 41-year-old mechanic died in his garage. He had been using prescription opioids for chronic pain after a workplace accident 7 years earlier. When his prescriptions were discontinued, he turned to street drugs. He purchased what he believed was oxycodone from a dealer he had used before. The pills were counterfeit, pressed with fentanyl. He took 2 pills, the dose he normally used. Within minutes, his breathing slowed. Within 15 minutes, he was unconscious. His wife found him 2 hours later when she came to tell him dinner was ready. Paramedics could not revive him. On the North Side, a 23-year-old college graduate was found dead in her apartment. She had moved to Chicago 6 months earlier for a job in marketing. Friends described her as ambitious and health-conscious. She had experimented with drugs recreationally in college, but friends did not believe she was a regular user. Toxicology revealed she had consumed fentanyl, likely believing it was something else. The concentration was lethal. Her parents flew in from Minnesota to identify her body and arrange for her remains to be transported home. On the South Side, paramedics responded to an overdose call at a bus stop. A 36-year-old man was found unresponsive on the sidewalk. Bystanders had called 911. Paramedics administered naloxone, but the response was minimal. They gave a second dose, then a third. After the fourth dose, he began breathing but remained unconscious. He was transported to Stroger Hospital, where he spent 9 days in intensive care. Medical staff explained to his family that even if he recovered physically, he might have permanent brain damage from oxygen deprivation. The pattern repeated across the city. Emergency rooms were overwhelmed. Paramedics carried triple the normal naloxone supply but still ran out during busy shifts. Hospital staff described conditions as crisis level. Morgues implemented temporary storage solutions because capacity was exceeded. Public health officials issued warnings, but warnings were ineffective when users could not distinguish synthetic opioids from other substances. The warehouse shipment represented a scale that would multiply existing tragedy. 240,000 doses entering circulation during Thanksgiving weekend would overwhelm emergency response systems that were already strained. DEA analysts projected the health consequences using models based on observed overdose rates and drug potency. The estimates were grim. If the shipment reached street-level dealers as planned, Chicago would likely experience between 800 and 1,200 overdoses during the 5 days following Thanksgiving. Of those overdoses, approximately 200 to 300 would be fatal despite medical intervention. 200 to 300 families would receive notifications during what was supposed to be a holiday weekend. 200 to 300 funerals would be planned in December. The broader impact extended beyond immediate casualties. Each overdose required emergency medical response. Paramedics would be tied up on extended calls. Ambulances would be unavailable for other emergencies. Heart attacks, strokes, accidents, all would face delayed response times because resources were consumed managing synthetic opioid overdoses. Hospital emergency departments would operate beyond surge capacity. Patients would wait hours for treatment. Some would deteriorate while waiting. Intensive care units would fill completely. Ventilators would be in constant use. Medical staff, already exhausted from ongoing crisis, would face intensified conditions that exceeded their ability to provide optimal care. The operation timeline was precise. Wednesday evening, processing would begin at the warehouse. The 317 kilograms of synthetic opioids would be mixed with cutting agents to create doses appropriate for street-level sale. The cutting process required careful measurement because synthetic opioids were so potent that minor errors created lethal doses. But the organization prioritized profit over safety. Inconsistent mixing was expected and accepted as cost of doing business. Thursday morning, packaging would commence. Doses would be placed in small bags, capsules, or pressed into counterfeit pills. The pills would be stamped to resemble legitimate prescription medications. Users would believe they were purchasing oxycodone, Vicodin, or Percocet. They would not know they were consuming fentanyl or carfentanil. Thursday afternoon, distribution would begin. Couriers would transport packaged doses to staging locations throughout the city. From those locations, street-level dealers would receive their inventory. By Thursday evening, synthetic opioids would be available for purchase across 17 neighborhoods. Friday morning, sales would accelerate as people prepared for holiday weekend. Users who planned to stock up before Thanksgiving would make purchases. New users who experimented during time off work would enter the market. The demand surge that always occurred during holiday weekends would be met with unprecedented supply. DEA tactical planning focused on stopping the operation before processing began. If the drugs were cut and packaged, intercepting all doses would be nearly impossible. The warehouse needed to be raided while the synthetic opioids were still in bulk form before distribution to staging locations. The timing window was narrow. Intelligence intercepts indicated processing would begin Wednesday at 8 p.m. Workers would arrive at the warehouse at 7 p.m. to prepare equipment and verify shipment quantities. The raid needed to execute after workers arrived but before processing began. That window was approximately 1 hour between 7:15 p.m. and 8 p.m. Wednesday evening. Federal prosecutors finalized warrants for the warehouse facility, associated residences, vehicles, and staging locations identified through surveillance. The legal documentation was extensive, requiring affidavits that detailed 22 weeks of investigation. Warrants needed approval from federal judges, coordination with state prosecutors, and legal authorization for simultaneous execution across multiple jurisdictions. Tactical teams from DEA, FBI, Chicago Police Department, and Illinois State Police coordinated operational plans. The warehouse raid would involve the largest deployment, requiring specialized units capable of securing a large facility while protecting both agents and workers who might be present. Staging location raids needed to execute simultaneously to prevent network members from being alerted. Wednesday afternoon, surveillance teams confirmed unusual activity at the warehouse. Multiple vehicles arrived carrying personnel who did not match normal worker profiles. The individuals appeared to be security rather than laborers. Additional vehicles arrived carrying equipment that suggested preparation for large-scale processing operations. The operation was proceeding exactly as intelligence predicted. At 6:53 p.m. Wednesday, tactical teams moved into position around the warehouse. Perimeter security was established to prevent escape routes. Specialized units prepared to breach multiple entry points simultaneously. Medical support was staged nearby in case of exposure to synthetic opioids, which could be toxic even through skin contact or inhalation. At 7:17 p.m., agents executed the raid. Multiple teams breached doors and secured the facility within minutes. Personnel inside were detained before they could react. 37 individuals were present at the warehouse, including workers preparing processing equipment, security personnel, and operational coordinators. The warehouse interior revealed industrial-scale drug processing infrastructure. 317 kilograms of synthetic opioids were stored in a climate-controlled room, organized on shelves and labeled with codes indicating origin and purity. Adjacent rooms contained cutting agents including lactose, mannitol, and caffeine. Pressing machines for creating counterfeit pills were set up in a separate area. Packaging supplies filled an entire storage zone. Evidence collected included digital scales accurate to milligrams, protective equipment for handling toxic substances, distribution records listing 273 dealer locations, financial ledgers documenting 6 months of operations, and communication devices containing messages about shipment schedules and revenue projections. Forensic analysis of the synthetic opioids revealed exceptionally high purity. The fentanyl measured 97% pure. The carfentanil, which is 100 times more potent than fentanyl, measured 94% pure. These concentrations meant that even tiny amounts could be lethal. The doses being prepared would have been unpredictable and dangerous, even for users with high opioid tolerance. Simultaneously, raids executed at staging locations across Chicago and surrounding suburbs. DEA teams targeted 17 locations identified through surveillance as distribution hubs. The raids occurred at 7:20 p.m., synchronized with the warehouse operation. Combined arrests at staging locations totaled 41 individuals. Seizures included an additional 23 kilograms of synthetic opioids from prior shipments, cash totaling $970,000, firearms, and customer contact information. The coordinated operation dismantled the entire network within hours. 37 arrests at the warehouse, 41 arrests at staging locations. Total arrests: 78 individuals facing federal trafficking charges. Total drug seizure: 340 kilograms of synthetic opioids removed from circulation 36 hours before street-level distribution would have begun. The immediate impact on Chicago's synthetic opioid markets was dramatic. Street-level dealers reported complete supply collapse within 48 hours. Users complained about inability to obtain drugs. The market disruption was so severe that some users entered treatment programs because continuing use became logistically impossible. Chicago Emergency Medical Services documented a 62% decrease in synthetic opioid overdose calls during the week following the operation. Paramedics who had been responding to 8 to 12 calls per shift saw numbers drop to 2 to 3 per shift. The correlation was unambiguous. When synthetic opioids were removed from circulation, overdoses declined proportionally. Hospital emergency departments experienced marked reduction in overdose admissions. Stroger Hospital, which had been treating an average of 11 synthetic opioid cases per day, saw numbers drop to 3 per day within 72 hours of the raid. Northwestern Memorial, which had activated surge protocols to manage overdose volumes, deactivated those protocols as caseloads returned to baseline. Public health officials tracked overdose deaths during the month following the operation. November, which included the Thanksgiving holiday period, showed a 47% reduction in synthetic opioid deaths compared to October. December showed a 31% reduction compared to November. The statistical significance was undeniable. The warehouse seizure saved lives in measurable numbers, but the victory was temporary. Other trafficking organizations continued operating. Different supply chains were established. Within 6 weeks, synthetic opioid availability in Chicago began returning to previous levels. The demand that drove markets had not disappeared. Users who could not access drugs during the disruption period either turned to treatment or found alternative sources once supply resumed. The shipment that was intercepted would have directly reached approximately 240,000 users across Chicago. Based on observed overdose rates from synthetic opioids of similar potency, DEA analysts estimated the drugs would have caused between 800 and 1,200 overdoses during the 5 days following Thanksgiving. 200 to 300 of those overdoses would likely have been fatal. Those overdoses did not occur. The deaths did not happen. The synthetic opioids never reached the cutting stage. Processing never began. Distribution never happened. The 240,000 doses never existed. The 800 to 1,200 projected medical emergencies never materialized. The 200 to 300 projected deaths never took place. The margin was 36 hours. Wednesday evening at 7:17 p.m. when agents raided the warehouse. Thursday afternoon when distribution would have begun. Friday morning when street-level sales would have accelerated. If the raid had been delayed until Thursday morning, processing would have been complete. Doses would have been packaged. Distribution would have been underway. By Thursday evening, synthetic opioids would have been dispersed across 17 neighborhoods, moving through 273 dealers to thousands of users. The first overdoses would have occurred Thursday night. Users who purchased drugs from dealers who received supply from the warehouse shipment would have consumed doses with unpredictable potency. Some would have survived if naloxone was administered quickly. Others would have died before help arrived. Emergency rooms would have begun seeing patients presenting with synthetic opioid overdose symptoms. Chicago hospitals had prepared for a difficult Thanksgiving weekend. They always did. Holiday periods saw increased emergency room traffic from various causes, but they were preparing for elevated baseline demand, not for mass casualties from synthetic opioid flooding. If 800 to 1,200 overdoses had occurred over 5 days, hospital systems would have faced crisis conditions that exceeded all preparation. Paramedic units had increased naloxone supplies for the holiday weekend. Standard procedure. They anticipated higher call volumes and prepared accordingly. But standard preparation assumed manageable increase, not overwhelming surge. If the shipment had reached circulation, emergency medical services would have been unable to maintain response time standards. Some overdose victims would have died waiting for help that took too long to arrive. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office had implemented overflow protocols based on trends showing increasing synthetic opioid deaths. They had arrangements with temporary storage facilities and additional staffing. But the protocols were designed for gradual increase, not for 200 to 300 additional deaths over a single holiday weekend. The system would have been overwhelmed. The absence of tragedy leaves no evidence. Emergency rooms that did not overflow maintained normal holiday operations. The 240,000 people who would have been exposed to synthetic opioids from this shipment never encountered the drugs. The 800 to 1,200 people who would have overdosed continued their holiday weekends without incident. The 200 to 300 people who might have died avoided fatal overdoses. Families gathered for Thanksgiving without receiving death notifications. But the warehouse was real. The 317 kilograms of synthetic opioids were real. The processing equipment was real. The distribution network spanning 17 neighborhoods was real. The 240,000 planned doses represented real exposure to real people. The 800 projected overdoses and 200 projected deaths were statistical probabilities based on observed patterns. Wednesday evening, 36 hours before synthetic opioids would have flooded Chicago streets, the operation collapsed. The warehouse was raided, the drugs were seized, the network was dismantled, processing equipment was confiscated, distribution records were collected, 78 people were arrested. 340 kilograms of synthetic opioids was removed from circulation before a single dose reached consumers. The investigation revealed organization that operated with business-level sophistication. The warehouse facility provided perfect cover. Legitimate operations created constant activity that masked criminal enterprise. Security protocols protected the operation without appearing unusual. Financial structures obscured money flows. The network had successfully operated for at least 6 months, processing prior shipments and generating revenue that funded expansion. But human intelligence combined with financial analysis and surveillance identified the operation. 22 weeks of investigation documented the network comprehensively. When the decision was made to execute the raid, timing was precise. 36 hours before Thanksgiving weekend, 1 hour before processing would begin. The window between preparation and distribution. The margin was 36 hours. Not weeks, not days, 36 hours. Wednesday evening versus Friday morning. That window was the difference between prevention and catastrophe. 240,000 doses, 800 to 1,200 overdoses, 200 to 300 deaths, all prevented because agents raided the warehouse before processing began. The work continues. Other warehouses are operating. Different networks are moving synthetic opioids into Chicago. New supply chains are being established. The demand persists. The opioid epidemic continues. The crisis is far from over. But this warehouse, this shipment, this network, these 240,000 planned doses, these 800 projected overdoses, these 200 projected deaths were stopped. Wednesday evening, 36 hours before Thanksgiving, 1 hour before processing. The timing made the difference. The coordination was comprehensive. The outcome was definitive. For this operation, for Chicago, for these neighborhoods, for these users, the synthetic opioids never reached the streets. 36 hours. That was the margin between mass casualties and intervention.